Hey everyone, coming to you again from Studio P today. As you'll have seen in the previous video, I write a column for an online magazine called Rocker. It's called Ask the Producer, where people write in with questions about what happens in the recording business and in the music business in general, and how the decisions we make affect what you hear on your end of things. This month's question was about, for instance, if you buy a record on vinyl and you get a free digital download along with that, which one of those two versions will sound more like what the artist originally intended? While I was writing the article, I also remembered a really good story that amazing producer, all-around good guy, and good friend of mine, Matt Wallace, told me about when Faith No More's Angel Dust was reissued on high-quality vinyl a couple of years ago. And Matt was good enough to share that story with us here.
Good. So I think it was about 2-3 years ago. I found out there's two releases of Faith No More's Angel Dust.
Yes.
Rhino was gonna do a kind of a reissue, and then Mobile Fidelity Sound Labs
Right.
was doing an issue. And of course, that's a thrill. Having a record that I did 20 years ago be one re-release, so that's always nice. And that was very, very exciting. And I liked the stuff that Mobile Fidelity had done in the past. What I'd heard, because they tend to be very into the sonics, and they want everything.
Yeah.
They told me they put it on 180 gram vinyl, and they took the album and split it over to two different LPs. And they're really trying to retain the sonic integrity. And of course, it was a thrill just to know that some guy really wanted to dedicate his time to this project, and that they picked Faith No More, and of all the people they could have chosen, all the different bands, they picked that one. So that's all the good stuff.
Yeah.
So I totally appreciated that. The only thing that was a bit of a hitch is that they didn't talk to me before they did it.
Right.
They mastered it. Of course, they don't need my permission. It's not my record. But they took it, and they elected to go to the source material, back to the half-inch 2-track master.
The original mix,
the
mix down tapes that you had made.
So the original mix down tapes that we had made, and they worked from there. And Mobile Fidelity is known for pristine sonics, and so they didn't use any, or they used very, very minimal compression on that. Unfortunately, when we made that record, I had really gone out of my way to not compress things while we were recording it, which is very different than the previous record, and not use a bunch of high-end EQ. It was kind of a knee-jerk reaction on my part and the band's part to distance ourselves from the real thing, which had tremendous compression.
Right. The real thing was the previous record.
Right. Yeah. Real thing was the previous record, and I compressed the hell out of everything on that record. I EQ'd the heck out of everything. And so on Angel Dust, I went out of my way to not do that, and the idea was, instead of compressing every instrument separately and then doing it again in mastering, I just said, look, let's just do literally put a little bit on the kick drum, a little bit on the voice. I mean, literally 1 dB type stuff. Just not my usual way of working, as you well know. I mean, I tend to squeeze the hell out of things. But I left it like that because I wanted in the master, I want to go through really good mastering compressors and just compress it once.
Right.
But I wanted that sound of the compression. I like the sound of compression. I like what it does to it. And so to me, it was essential that was kind of part of the production of the record, was how it was mastered. And at the time, I'd worked with John Golden, who did the original mastering of both Angel Dust and The Real Thing. All my records, he was the guy. So he and I had kind of a shorthand. We knew what to do, and we did our thing. So Mobile Fidelity comes on board, and they do their approach. And ordinarily, I completely agree with their idea of bypassing extraneous amounts of compression and trying to maybe undo some of the poor sonic quality that people may have done in the past.
Right.
But with this record, to me, the compression was absolutely essential to the sound of the record. It was always intended to be included in the mastering, but not just compression, but noticeable compression. I mean, really, really noticeable compression. So anyway, Mobile Fidelity did their version without it, and it sounds like a very, very different record. And it's not what I intended, and so it's a bit of a...
So the interesting thing about that is how most people assume that, especially with everything being louder these days, that labels have always meddled and said, no, you got to make it louder. And so when Mobile Fidelity came across these completely uncompressed mixes, they thought, oh, we're going to do this. This is the way the band and Matt and everybody wanted it in the first place. And the label must have made them do this, but in reality, it wasn't the case.
It wasn't the case at all. And whatever. It's kind of water under the bridge. But ideally, it would have been nice if I'd had a conversation with them, so I could at least kind of tell them, look, well, I understand what you guys are doing. This was really always intended as having substantial, noticeable compression. That was part of the end effect, and And I understand, yeah, like you say, other records, yeah, it makes sense. You go back and try to undo too much compression, but it was supposed to have compression, so it sounds very, very different. I mean, it's technically better. Mobile Fidelity's version is technically a better sounding record, but it doesn't have the spirit and the vibe that the one I think we did,
Right.
which is just more like kind of in your face. So.
Big thanks to Matt for taking time out of his busy day over at Studio Deluxe to tell us that story. If you like what you've been seeing here on the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button. You can also follow me on Twitter at WKProducer, on Facebook, Will Kennedy, Producer, Mixer, Engineer, or you can check out my website, www.willkennedyproducer.com. Thanks.